This week's card is all about snowflakes. We've got some glitz and some glimmer, as well as an exciting embossing folder. So here's the inside. Room for you to add your own greeting. Alright, let's get started. Today I'm using a special silver 12 by 12 paper, and it's really nice and smooth silver, not the mirror shine, but it's a really pretty and elegant color. And then we also have, of course, our embossing folder. Mine here is just clear, but the real one has the black design, just so you can see the design more clearly. But you can see how you get a variety of shapes and sizes of the snowflakes, and it's really beautiful as a result. And then we have the Christmas cheer stamps and two colors, blue and silver, of the holographic snowflakes paper. Alright, now that you've seen the goodies, let's get started. So the first thing I've done is cut this paper to be slightly larger than my folder. You can cut it exact the size. I just decided to get a little extra in there just so I cover everything. Now these folders are sized to be about a quarter of the size of a regular 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. So the folder itself is 5 3/4 by about 4 1/4, as you can see. Alright, so now I'm going to take my Epic 6, and I also have the platform, it's called the Embossing platform, and I also have my cutting mat. So here's the platform and the cutting mat. Let me scoot this out of the way. So I place my folder. Now one thing to note is make sure that you have the silver facing the correct direction. You could do it with the snowflakes pressing in, or you could do it with the snowflakes popping out on the silver. This time I want them to be popping out, so I've got the recessed areas touching the paper. Hopefully you'll be able to figure that out with the folders that do have the actual design printed on them. Okay, so on the mat, on the platform, and then the cutting it on top, and I'm feeding it straight through my Epic 6. Now, I always do it backwards. Now you might have a different embossing machine, but they all pretty much work the same way. They press together the layers, whether it be cutting dies or embossing folders. And there I have my snowflakes. Now it looks like I have a fold in here, a crease. Which isn't a huge deal, but what I'm going to try next is spraying lightly some water on the back of the paper to make it a little more pliable. Alright, so I've sprayed the back lightly with water, and let's see if this works a little bit better than the machine. Okay, opening that up. Wow, look at that. Just beautiful. Okay, I'm glad that worked. There are some tiny wrinkles in here, but I think it looks very sharp. Alright, and once this kind of dries on the back and you glue it down to your card, it will lie pretty much flat. So I'm going to call that good. And by the way, I just used a little spritzer bottle. You can use an empty spray bottle, just put water in it. Just make sure that the mist is pretty fine, that you don't want to saturate the paper, just kind of dampen it a little. So now I'm going to prep the greeting for the card, and I'm going to go ahead and use the biggest greeting on here. And I'm also going to use just a piece of plain white cardstock and the design toolkit #1 because it has a really pretty shape on here, bracket label A, that I want to use. So this isn't in the bundle, but it can be sold or bought separately. So first I'm going to take my stamp, mount it on an acrylic block, and I'm using Colorbox chalk ink in Arctic Deep, and this is one of the limited edition colors. It's a really pretty kind of bluish greenish color. Okay, so I usually take my ink pad to my stamp, put the white behind it so you can kind of see better. Just evenly ink up the whole thing here. And stamp. Make sure I got everything on there. Let's see how it turned out. Nice. Now the reason I stamped first before cutting out my shape is that if I make a mistake stamping, I can go ahead and stamp on another piece of paper without having wasted my already cut out pretty shape. And these are clear, so they're really easy to center over your stamps and just trace and cut out, which is what I'm going to do right now. My next step now is to glue this to the blue Snowflakes holographic paper, about right there, and then I'm going to cut around it. So I'm matting it on here with about an 1/8" border. So use my favorite glue stick. Oops, I'll twist it up a little. Okay, there we go. Here are my pieces so far. I've got this matted, so you can kind of see that sparkly blue border. This is the embossed piece. Now I've cut off the sides, so all I have is the snowflake pattern on this piece. And I have this 6.5" tall by 5" wide card. And what I'm gonna do is, since this is going on the front, it's going to take up the majority of the space on here, and I want a lot of snowflakes to kind of show, so I'm going to put it sideways this way. You can use it this way, you'll just have a white border, or you can cut down your card and make a smaller card, your choice. But I'm going to use it this way, and I also want to use the silver snowflakes. So what I'm going to do is, with this piece, I'm going to flip it over just so it's easier to see. I'm going to make some straight cuts across here, and we're going to spread out the pieces on the card, and you'll kind of see what I'm doing in a second. And these are going to get glued onto my card. So kind of arrange them on here with space in between. So I'm going to glue them down kind of like this, equidistant more or less. And then I'm going to cut thin stripes of the holographic paper to go in between, but I still want some white showing. So I'm going to go ahead and do those steps so I don't have to bore you with watching me do this. And then I'll come back and show you, and then we'll move on. Alright, so this is the result. I've cut the strips to 3/8" wide, so it worked out that these pieces were spaced out just enough so that the 3/8" wide strips would fit in the middle of them and still leave about an 1/8" of border of white, which is what I wanted. So I'm really liking how this is looking. It's got some flash and it's also got a smooth silver on it. There's those two types of silver, and I love how that creates a nice wintry effect. Alright, so this is going on the front of my card, right about there, just in the center, nice and simple. So I'm going to foam tape that on. But before I do that, I'm going to stamp it a little bit more. I've got a little snowflake stamp on here that I can use to kind of jazz it up a bit around the sides. And there are some swirls as well. So I'm going to use the snowflake and the swirls on the edges of the stamp. And of course, put a piece of scrap paper right here so that you don't stamp on your cutting mat. So what I'm going to do is try to get a little bit lighter image. So I'm going to stamp once on my scrap piece of paper and then stamp onto my image and see how it kind of gives a ghosted image, which is what I like. So you get two kind of shades of snowflakes. Okay, so the card front is finished. I've added some swirls around the border here as well as kind of layered snowflakes just to make it a little more interesting. And right here I've just tied a small bow, sheer bow, and attached it with my trusty Zots. So this is the finished product. And now onto the inside. So here I've traced a line across the bottom and across the top of the inside. And these are 1.25 inches from each edge. And what I'm going to do is create a little border on each side that kind of is the same thing as the front, going like this off the card. And I'm going to put in between those, instead of the silver holographic snowflakes, I'll put the blue holographic snowflakes. So I'll go ahead and do that, erase the line, and then we'll come back. Alrighty, I think we're done. Here's a closer look at that border across the top and across the bottom. You can see how the snowflakes have a sort of continuous pattern, which I think is a cool little detail. And the blue gives it a nice contrast. So that's the inside. Here's the front again. I just love looking at those embossed snowflakes. They give it such a nice texture and dimension. And the stamp sits right in the middle perfectly. And the ribbon just sets it off, and that's the end. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for this week's bundle. In today's bundle, we have several awesome kind of shiny and wintry items. First off, we have the Snowflakes embossing folder. Now, yours will have the design in black printed on the actual folder. Mine's doesn't have that because it's a prototype. But the embossing folder kind of ends up, I've done one here in a gold, and look what it makes. How beautiful is that? You'll need an embossing machine such as the Epic 6 or the Big Shot, one of several. But these are awesome. You can use them over and over again. They pretty much never really wear out. And you can use them on pretty much any cardstock or paper depending on the weight of the paper. Then we also have the Christmas cheer stamps. And these are a pretty good size. They range from about 1 3/4 wide to or tall to 3.5 inches tall. So these would be great to put on your Christmas cards, just right in the front, on the center, or on the side. But these would be like the focal of your card, which is really nice because a lot of stamps have just a tiny greeting, and sometimes you just want it to be nice and big. Then of course we have in blue and in silver the holographic Snowflakes paper, and these are so fun to look at. They just shimmer and shine and add sparkle to any project. And this is, it looks kind of white flat, but this is actually a silver specialty paper, and it's 12 by 12, so you can see it kind of fills the screen here. And it's a lighter weight paper, but it does beautifully in the embossing folder. And I have, this is the gold version of the same paper, so you can just see how beautifully it embosses. And those are all of the items in this week's bundle. Once again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next week.